All right. All right, let's go on ahead and get started. I'm super excited. So, welcome everybody to our first Rook community call. I'm Kyle, or What's the Deets, and I'm very excited to have this call today. If you hadn't paid attention to any of our announcements in the last 24 hours, we are officially now Rook, and as a part of that rebrand, we have some exciting new aspects of our protocol that have been launched, including what was formerly known as the coordination game, which is now the Rook protocol, and user staking and our new trading app, a whole overhauled suite of offerings that have been a long time coming. So what the rebrand and the launch and what went into that, but how everything's going to operate and what the future is going to look ahead for us as we continue development, continue partnering with other great protocols around the space, and just continue to improve everything that we can do. So let me just kind of first pause and just say, where we're at today has been a long time coming, and there's been so many people that have come in and done amazing work for us, whether they're full-time contributors or community members that have shared on social media or provided great ideas for governance or marketing, or just contributing to great discussions here in our Discord. So really, I just kind of want to start this off from a place of gratitude. Thank you everyone for being here with us. This is a really exciting day for us today. But with that, I'd love to kind of just kick it off. Our agenda today is going to be pretty straightforward. We'll have Hazard and Joey up here, talk about the rebrand and what went into that, and then as well as our new Rook protocol. Our tokenomics overhaul, and how every single stakeholder can benefit from
protocols like an eternity, right? And it's not that way in the real world, in the rest of the world usually, but that's how it is here. And so this is such a great moment because it feels sort of like the end of an era, really, an era that was full of a lot of interesting and exciting research and stuff, but which was also at the same time sort of a kind of like a stealth mode trial balloon sort of situation. And I think we've all, in the team as well as outside, have sort of been eager to see what happens when these ideas sort of meet reality and we start to get real data, real users, and really put everything through its paces. This isn't just the release of a protocol. That's probably the biggest deal here in terms of technology, research, development, and impact. We really wanted to take this opportunity to also, change up what we as a project and as a DAO, how we present ourselves to the rest of the industry. We had some amazing rebranding workshops and work done by our contributors to create our new sort of brand and brand look and identity. And that's still an ongoing process, but what we've seen already, and you can see out in our materials and websites and stuff, is really amazing. And also to kind of celebrate how we've developed the team. We've done a lot of work in terms of thinking what we are as a DAO, what we are as an organization, and how we use that to kind of fuel the sort of development that we want to see and that we want to have. And I credit the DAO for that, because 6 months ago or whatever, when we didn't even have DAO governance, this was a very different project, and there's a lot of steps along the way, and it's hard to kind of think of any one of them as being the real sort of culminating moment. But really what started to unleash the potential here was the fact that the DAO became kind of self-aware, right? It once it had its governance, it could sort of decide what to do. And what it decided to do was what we have now, which is miles and miles different and better and more robust, and just a totally different animal from what we had 6 months ago. And it's a huge credit to the DAO, to the team and the contributors, to Joey and a lot of the founding members of the team who had this vision, and kind of the technical skill to bring it out. All of our partners and integration partners who have stepped up and stepped in and stayed interested and wanted to build alongside of us. All of our advisors and investors and everything else. It's just really an amazing community of folks. And it takes one of those in this space to really succeed. You can't just sort of go it alone. It takes this sort of coordination to create a project like this. So yeah, so excited for today. I can't imagine how Joey feels, because this has been bouncing around in his head for years. So I'm curious to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. It has been. Yeah, I think you summarized it well. A lot of changes, a lot of evolution. But what's exciting is there's still a lot left to do, and still a lot of evolution left. We're still very early in our goals, and the growth of our team is really an indicator of that. Like we're not. We haven't peaked already, right? This is still, very early. We have a lot to accomplish. We've done, a lot of hiring and found the right people, built the right team. We're developing the right kind of community. And we're really excited to also kind of lift the shroud. So, there's been a lot of things that we've been working on that we really haven't talked much about and announced much about. Whether it's like the coordination protocol or token economic details, or maybe new app features or new protocol features in general. And it's nice to kind of finally put things out there and ask for feedback and let you guys actually dive in and consume this stuff, and then we can gather data, kind of gather feedback and kind of help grow this thing in the right direction. So we're really excited about that. And I also wanted to just kind of share a personal thanks to our team. It's done such a wonderful job. So much hard work and dedication has gone into this, really all over every aspect of our team. And especially this week too. Obviously, everyone's been working really, really hard to ship this. And it's really exciting to get this live and in people's hands. So thank you guys so much. And so maybe the first thing that we should chat about today, and Hazard, feel free to chime in at any moment. Maybe let's talk about the token economics and kind of like the overview, and get a good high level understanding, and even potentially tee up some questions later on. So I'll try not to get too deep in the weeds on any particular thing to kind of save some space for during this call for a nice Q&A at the end. I'm sure people are going to have questions, whether it's technical questions or economic questions, anything like that related to the app, what we're working on now in the future. So feel free to prepare those questions for us. And the token economics for Rook are fundamental, right? And this is something that I personally have iterated on for a very, very long time. And then at some point, it's like we brought in the team, and everyone just kind of put their mind to it and just really like sunk their teeth into it. We thought about every possible way to do this, the pros and cons of each. whether to do this on chain or use a payment channel, how much do you give to this participant versus that? How do we include everyone? Do you have a staking pool? Do you not? There's so many factors that go into this, right? And at the end of the day, what we want is we want to, achieve our goals, right, of driving value back to the user as efficiently as possible and empowering, the user to kind of lean on, keepers to facilitate their actions and drive value back to them so that we can make great products. And it kind of starts with this economic moat that we've built. And that really, starts with, our token, where we have, users, staking into, a pool. You have keepers staking onto the coordinator, and then the token gets utilized to, perform all of these actions, and it just kind of creates this nice flywheel effect, right? So the very first thing to start on would be, keepers are essentially buying Rook. They're acquiring Rook and accumulating that and staking that on the coordinator's contract. And that's basically a payment channel mechanism. And they're staking this Rook to acquire the right to capture MEV and facilitate trade for users, right? Because keepers are backstopping users and they're performing a service to users. And then in exchange, they get a cut of the profit. And we have mechanisms to kind of balance that and keep that all in place. And then that profit gets distributed using the coordinator. And the coordinator is in the user's best interest, right? Because the coordinator, if it did bad things, then we would lose users, right? So it really has the user's best interest, and that's fundamental for this to work. And today the team, us, we control and operate the coordinator. We would love to in the future kind of hand those controls, one at a time off to the DAO and have the DAO control it. We feel like in this very early stage, it makes the most sense for the team to control it because we're the ones who understand those controls. And what happens if you slide this lever, push this button? The DAO quite doesn't fully understand that yet. But now that we've kind of revealed the shroud and lifted the shroud so that everyone can see and understand, we can kind of consume it as a community more so than just as a team. And, maybe you guys will, kind of shine some light on things and look at it from a different angle and kind of bring a different look to it, which would be great and kind of help us evolve everything, right? So anyway, users, they're performing actions. You have keepers who are, bidding to capture, MEV and execute a keeper's, trade, for example. It could be a market order, a limit order, anything like that. Then value gets extracted through the payment channel. The user can then claim their MEV, from their trade that got executed. They could claim it as often as they like on the payment channel. That's what's nice about using a payment channel. They have the flexibility to do something like that. And then our economics have some mechanisms built in place to enable us to build this ecosystem exactly how we want it, right? So we can burn Rook to make it deflationary. We can send some portion of it to the DAO treasury to give the DAO some revenue to continue building and doing great things. Then we can also send some of it to the X Rook staking pool, which is where community members can stake their Rook to generate a yield and be directly involved in any value and any volume that goes through, which is a fantastic way for them to participate and also combine governance into there as well. So then there's this nice kind of feedback loop where you have keepers who are essentially purchasing Rook to facilitate trade, and then they'll eventually run out, so they'll need to reload and buy more Rook off the market, and it creates this nice demand flywheel for Rook. The Rook is constantly circulating, constantly getting burned. And who knows, maybe someday we might decide we're burning too much and we need to ease back, or maybe we decide we're not burning enough and we want to burn more. We can kind of tweak those things as time goes on. And we have the levers to do that. And that's great. Let's see. And what's nice about using our own token for this flywheel mechanism is we can fully control the economics, right? Because if we were just allowing users to stake Ether, we can't fully control the economics. We're kind of at the mercy of whatever Ether is doing. If Ether is deflationary, we have to be deflationary. If we burn Ether, that doesn't really change anything, because it's not like our ecosystem. We're just kind of burning Ether from another ecosystem. And there's just a lot of side effects that we would have to deal with in using Ether. But that's kind of the main reason here for us to control the economics and drive the DAO in the direction that we want it to go. And that's why we have the Rook token built in. And this is great because this is really the first time we've had true economics live with Rook. Prior to this, it was, hiding game and emissions, but that's not like true economics. Like this is real economics at work with a real product, coordinating, many different people and bots all together, which is awesome. So next, go ahead.
If I could just say, like, something that's been really hard actually for us on the marketing side is to convince people, and you do have to say explicitly, like when they ask, where's the Rook coming from, that it's not, it's not inflation, right? It's not emissions, because it is actually a fully featured, utility driving economy. Like it's something's happening that's not just tokens being shot out at users, which is amazing, right? It's one of the most elegant tokenomic designs that I think is out there. And so we have a lot of work to do making people more aware of it, because I think it's really unique compared to some of the other things that are out there. And it has so many interesting levers, like Joey was saying, that the DAO and team and everybody can use to really tune all of the behavior and to kind of reach our, whatever the goal is, right? So yeah, it's really great. Love talking about it.
Definitely looking for community feedback on this as well. There's so many things you can do with this. It's really exciting.
So yeah. Joey, I think that kind of opens up a good kind of segue here, where looking at Rook and its involvement in the entire ecosystem, I think this is an opportunity for us to kind of at least explain a little bit behind some of the more I would say intricate details of how things operate. So looking at the coordinator and what people don't see as they use our app. So why don't we start from the beginning here? I'm a user. I want to buy some Rook using some wrapped ETH, and I place, a $10,000 order on the system. Can you walk me through what happens behind the scenes and why it's going to be beneficial for folks to use, our application?
So the user places their order, and that order is signed using our protocol through the hiding book, and that order is only fillable by a whitelisted Rook keeper. And what's going to happen is these keepers will detect opportunities to facilitate trade on their behalf, and they bid with the coordinator. They say, hey, coordinator, I've got this payment channel over here opened up with you, and I'm willing to pay this much to facilitate that trade for the user. And what this does is this allows the user to trade without paying gas. And then this also allows the keeper a way to, make money off of performing an action for somebody else. And then it kind of brings them together because they both want the same thing, right? They both want this result to succeed. And you can have multiple keepers, many keepers bidding on this opportunity. And you have this balancing mechanism in play here with the green light algorithm, where it'll look at all of the keepers who have bid on this auction, and it can select them intelligently based on things like reputation, how much Rook they're willing to pay to acquire this, and based on random numbers as well, to basically kind of add some downward bid pressure in there, because you don't want a grim trigger, right? You don't want the same behavior that you see in the wild. There's other factors as well, like say maybe how much Rook they stake, because if a keeper is more committed to Keeper DAO, or to Rook rather, then they're probably a better selection, and that also is nice because it incentivizes keepers to commit to Rook and commit to being a keeper rather than just dabbling in it. And then you can also factor in reputation, which is important, because if say 5 keepers are bidding and the highest bidder only has a success rate of 10%, wouldn't you rather select another keeper who has a significantly higher success rate to be, more likely to succeed, immediately? And so there's a lot of stuff that gets fed into this algorithm, and it balances it and makes a decision. And then even if the first keeper were to fail, it can actually fall back to another keeper. And before the order expires, it can then select another keeper, and they can take their shot at filling it. And all of this actually happens through a payment channel, which is really cool because that means that the keepers don't have to pay gas in order to do this math, right? If you look at some other mechanisms that do somewhat remotely similar things, I'm not even going to say the same because there's really nothing else that does this the same way. But any mechanism that does something similar, it's usually always done on chain. But then it's like doing anything on chain, you have to pay gas to do math even, which is kind of silly, right? And so we do this off chain to maximize efficiency and maximize MEV extraction, maximize reward for the user. And it just makes the whole ecosystem better. And then let's see. So I talked about reputation. So reputation is important when considering this process too, because you may have keepers who are more successful than other keepers, and you kind of want to factor that in. But also, what's important to think about with regards to reputation is you kind of want to discover what reputation actually means and what the value of reputation is, right? Because like if you look at sports, for example, you might look at a batting average of a baseball player. They may be batting 300, but then, well, is 300 good or bad? Like you actually don't know until you have lots of data to sift through. And then you could say, oh yeah, actually 300 is pretty good. Or maybe if this is another planet and gravity's different, maybe 300 is really bad because it's really easy to hit the ball. So there's a lot of things we want to discover. And then what's great is the green light algorithm is controllable. So we can basically adjust the weight of reputation and say, reputation is really important. We need to raise that up higher. Or actually, you know what? Reputation's a little overrated. Let's lower that down. Or maybe we see keepers are actually making too much money. So what we can do is we can actually increase randomness in the system to apply downward bid pressure. Basically, what that does is it gives keepers incentive to bid less, because if they bid too much, they're actually still going to lose somewhat often to another keeper who bid less. So then you're actually going to make more money by bidding less, and that puts more money in users' pockets. So, if we decide that keepers are making too much money, we can adjust that lever. And then if we decide it's the other way, maybe users are making all the money and keepers are going broke, we can adjust the lever in the other direction and make sure that keepers are healthy as well. Because, if the keepers can't function, then the system won't work well. So it's perfectly adjustable so that we can find that equilibrium, which is really cool. So anyway, so back to the example, the user is spending their wrapped ether. And let's say the auction was complete. A keeper facilitated the trade. Now that gets settled on chain. The coordinator knows to look on chain based on the information that was negotiated through the payment channel and through the API. And so they look on chain and they confirm the action was settled on chain, and then they settle the payment channel bid, right? So if a keeper placed a bid and succeeded, that bid will now be fully spent. And if the bid failed for whatever reason, we actually give the keeper a refund, which is cool. One of the nice features of the coordinator is that it's very generous and flexible towards keepers. And that's important. That was a huge, huge priority. And the reason being is if this mechanism is a pain in the butt and it's rigid and it doesn't fit keepers, then keepers won't use it. Or if they use it, they'll kind of use it with extreme caution. And we don't want that. We want keepers to be efficient. We want them to just go for it and really push the limits of efficiency to help the user. Because at the end of the day, that helps the user. The more efficient keepers are, the more money users make and the better trade execution users get, right? And so we make sure to design this system in such a way that it maximizes efficiency and flexibility for keepers. So if a keeper tries a trade and they miss and they screw up and oops, like Flashbots didn't mind my transaction, crap. Or like something goes wrong and their bot fails and the trade reverts, whatever, that's okay. We actually give them a refund because you know what? There's another keeper who wants to fill that right after them. And if say a minute goes by and they don't fill that, well then guess what? It's the backup keeper. Keeper B can now fill that. And then if they fail and the trade still hasn't expired, that third keeper can come in and fill it. And it's really cool. So there's a lot of redundancy there when you add in a lot of keepers. Today we have 4 keepers, but this system scales very well. And we can have, dozens and dozens of keepers and get massive, massive redundancy. And then, make sure that we're kind of catering to the most efficient keepers. You may have some keepers that are kind of specializing in this type of trade and other keepers specializing in that type of trade. And maybe this subset of keepers is really effective at trading stable coins, but that subset of keepers is really effective at trading just random tokens that just were minted yesterday. So all sorts of different strategies that come into play. And so then the users, back to the example again, the users, trade is settled on chain. And then what happens is that bid is settled through the payment channel. And then the user can then later claim that Rook reward that they received. So their trade completed. So they spent their wrapped ether and they received their DAI, or their Rook rather. And then now their reward will be in Rook as well in this case. And so then they can claim their Rook reward, once a day, once a week, once a month, however suits their fancy. And they can, take that Rook. If they want to stake it for X Rook, they can to gain yield on it. They could, sell it. They could trade it. They could just hold on to it. They could vote with it in governance, all sorts of things. And so I think, let's see, so the auction mechanism is cool. So I didn't talk too much about that. I'll kind of touch on that briefly. And so one of the nice features about our auction mechanism is it supports bidding with dependencies. And that's a cool feature because if you're a keeper, you might want to say, well, hey, I want to cross these 2 orders. And so that's a dependency, right? Because you don't want to green light one keeper for that order and another keeper for the other order if the guy who's bidding the most actually wants to fill both of them. So it's able to process these complex dependencies where keeper A is actually bidding on order 1 and keeper B is bidding on order 2, but keeper C wants to fill both order 1 and order 2. And then its green light algorithm actually takes all of this into consideration. It looks at reputation, it looks at bid size, it looks at their random score, it looks at how much Rook they staked, all sorts of stuff. And then it also considers dependencies and it factors this in. And the coordinator says, well, look, if I let keeper C fill both of those orders, I get his bid of, let's say he bid 1 Rook. But if keeper A bid 1 Rook on order 1 and keeper B bid 1 Rook on order 2, the coordinator knows it can actually accumulate more value by letting keeper A and B fill those orders independently, because you'll actually extract a total of 2 Rook value as opposed to just 1 Rook. Because if you let keeper C fill it, that Rook is going to have to be split over 2 users. And so it does all of this nice work to make sure that it maximizes value while still maintaining health of the ecosystem. And that's huge. There's a lot that goes into this. And it works great, which is cool. And so we're kind of seeing this evolve, right now in front of our eyes. If you just, go to the auction screen in our app and just refresh and just sit there and watch it, it's really cool to watch everything go through. And then
so also, let me quickly record scratch there, because I think that you said something that really caught my ear. So, yeah. What you talked about there was one user's order being searched on chain for liquidity or an opportunity by keepers. But then you brought up that maybe coincidentally 1 or 2 or 3 different users all have orders that could be filled in the same transaction, and that's something that kind of can happen just organically in the system. Am I hearing that right?
Yep, that's correct. And so earlier today, we were sharing around a transaction where a user, their order had gotten crossed with 2 different market makers. So it was like, token A, and then that got routed to token B through one market maker, and then routed through token C through another market maker. And there were actually 3 users in one order. And we do have a lot of evolution coming within the next few months on routing and batching. So there's definitely a lot more to come with that. Yeah, that works today. And so, users, their trade can be facilitated through a DeFi protocol like Uniswap or Curve, but it can also be facilitated through a market maker that we have integrated directly into the hiding book within our ecosystem. And then, it can also just be arbed by a keeper who just wants to fill it against some centralized exchange like a Coinbase or Binance. So, when a user comes in here and trades, it's quite literally a coordinated DeFi, CeFi aggregator.
Yeah. So what that sounds like to me is that there's many different types of ways that folks get, or at least acquire tokens, and the way they do that on or off chain, whether it's, someone's specific use case where they need, two specific, or multiple users to have orders that kind of align with each other, or if they're just somebody that uses one specific DEX, or somebody that uses an aggregator. What this sounds like to me is that pretty much most of those protocols, use cases, or value propositions are just individual features that we can offer as a part of this kind of evolving modular build that the coordinator can provide.
Yes, absolutely. And this is probably a good time to make a call to action for anyone who may be listening here, who's an automated trader, a searcher, a keeper, a bot, a market maker, etc. Definitely, this is a great time to contact us, reach out. We definitely have a lot of opportunities for you.
Awesome. So, I kind of want to dig into that a little bit more. We have some, what I would consider industry leading market makers and keepers that are participating, in the beginning of this protocol with us. I'd love to have you talk about, let's start with the keeper side. We talk about the benefits of integrating their operations with us.
Yeah, it's a nice benefit because you have a series of things that you just can't get anywhere else, right? So if you're a trader and you're just kind of botting in the wild, you have to spend a massive amount of time on the technology arms race where you're fighting off mining pools and other bots. And those problems don't exist here at all. I know prior to the hiding game launching, I've spent a ton of my time doing that personally, and it's this never-ending cat and mouse game that you basically can't ignore, right? So a keeper within the Rook ecosystem can completely ignore all of that stuff, and really you can just then spend your time focusing on things like gas efficiency, extracting value, adding integrations, which is kind of the more fun part of it, and the more practical side of it, and then at the end of the day, now it just becomes a win-win for the user and the keeper, right? Because that you're kind of focused on the value adds that help them, rather than just kind of fighting each other or fighting other bots. And so, I kind of like to say, like, if you're a good trader, if you're a good smart contract writer and a good bot maker, it's kind of like shooting fish in a barrel compared to trading in the wild. You don't have to deal with grim triggers. You don't have to worry about front running other bots. You don't have to send all of the profit to the miners. You don't have to be concerned about miners locking you out and just trying to steal the value for themselves. So huge benefit there. And then I'll talk a little bit about our swap protocol upgrade that we're working on. There's a lot more benefits that are going to come for that as well.
That's awesome. So that would be kind of like, the half of the coin here. So looking at the other half, you're a power user on chain, or you're a market maker. Talk about what's the benefit of that instead of running your own kind of individualized strategy on all different types of protocols.
Sure. So market makers basically have a perfect environment within our ecosystem. So if you're an on-chain market maker and you're making markets outside in the wild, you're basically putting yourself at risk for bots, right? And I say this literally from experience because I've done market making for many years. And it's funny because, I've always historically done it from both sides. And many times, my taker bot would interact with my market maker. And at the time, I wouldn't care. Well, if my market maker gets ripped off, that's okay because I was ripping myself off. And then it's like, whatever. But in this ecosystem, it's amazing because, that's rare. Like when me being a market maker and a bot taker, that's like a unicorn. You don't really find those. It's so rare. Most people, they're doing market making And if they get their face ripped off by a bot, they're just out that money, right? So that's the common pattern when market making in the wild. And market making definitely has that risk side of it. And what's great about our ecosystem is you have all of these keepers working for you. They're literally backstopping you, because if they extract MEV, 80% of that value goes right back in your pocket, which is fantastic, right? So if volatility strikes and you don't get to cancel your order in time, bam, 80% right back in your pocket. So it's kind of like a refund on any mistakes that you make or any problems that you have. And then on the other side of it too, if you make profit on the trade, you then get a double profit, right? So it's like you get that profit from that spread or that hedge or that arb or whatever you ended up doing, plus you get any MEV extracted, 80% back in your pocket. So it's just amazing for market makers. This is a match made in heaven. So we do have 4 market makers integrated now, which is awesome. We would like to keep recruiting them and upping that. So if we have any market makers or automated traders listening in, this is a big opportunity for you to jump in and start integrating. So another way to look at benefit for a market maker here is really this is a single integration to access all DeFi and CeFi liquidity, right? So any integration that any keeper has, you now have because they're backstopping you. So you can just use your regular trading strategy to capture spreads or to hedge any fills, any normal trading strategy that you have, then you can combine that with, just earning Rook rewards, from any arbitrage that happens. And then also if you join now, we're running a pilot program, which is awesome. And so maybe this is a good time to talk more about the pilot programs. So the market maker pilot program, we're incentivizing market makers to join us. And what you do is you integrate with the hiding book and you market make based on some terms that we have, and you earn an average of $500,000 over a 6-month period. And then keepers, they're doing a similar program where they're earning an average of $250,000 over a 6-month period. And those two things are very related, right? So there's this like kind of trickle down effect, which is cool because market makers can drive value and volume to keepers, and then keepers can make money off of market makers, and market makers can make money off keepers. So they kind of feed off of each other, which is awesome. And this also kind of helps us bootstrap our coordination protocol launch. And it's great because we're trying to kind of find our feet and ship the sail in the right direction. And sometimes you need a little bit of wind in the sail, and this is definitely one way to do it, right? Because you want a reason for these millionaire market makers or billionaire market makers to integrate with your protocol, and this is a great way to do it. This gets them in the door, hook, line, and sinker, and a little bit of money guaranteed up front. And then what we do, now that we have them in the door and we're hooked in and we're having conversations daily or weekly, we can then make sure that we're getting them long-term sustainable success. And we want that for both keepers and market makers, right? And so these programs, they're actually, it's a pool, right? So all of the keepers who are involved, they're in a pool, and the more successful you are, the more you make from the program, right? So say a market maker, for example, they'll make an average of $500,000 over 6 months. Well, if you're more successful than the average, you're going to make more than that. And if you're less successful, you'll make less, right? So we kind of cater to the top performers. That way, we're not letting people kind of slack and just show up and get that, participation trophy. And keepers also get an integration bounty as well for their integration, because the keeper integration is quite a feat. Obviously keepers have to do a lot more work than market makers, so there's approximately a $92,000 integration bounty, depending on what aspect of the integration you were able to achieve. You can get that, and one of our keepers has completely maxed that out already. They maxed that out pretty early on, and the others are working up to that. And Ninja's obviously, firing on cylinders, so that's looking good. So lots of opportunities here if you're a keeper, market maker, any sort of automated trader.
Yeah. If that's in your wheelhouse, reach out to myself, reach out to Jay-Z. We have documents on that on our Git books. You can find that through our website. So very much a fantastic opportunity for folks that want to not just help us, bootstrap our corenomics, but really, find, what I would consider the best way to operate on chain right now. But that kind of leads me to, something that you said about, integrations and folks, like market makers having a single source of integrations here. Looking at kind of the whole ecosystem, outside of, what's just happening inside of the Rook protocol. Something that I'm most excited about, and we'll be taking on, a large bit of responsibility for that, is working with other protocols and integrating them into our system. This is something, Hazard, I know that you have been absolutely integral in some of these conversations. And, I'd love, to have you kind of talk a little bit about, what's gone into some of these conversations and how we identify value with these other protocols that we're integrating, whether it's, with GMX or with B protocol or with Gamma strategies or some of the, the other upcoming conversations that we have. I'd love to just get your insight on, the value that working with us and our engineering team can potentially bring to just about any protocol.
Yeah. So, when we started, looking at the protocol we were building, and initially we were really focused around trading, right? I mean, the hiding game was sort of trading focused. We have a trading app and we facilitate trades with limit orders and soon some more advanced types of orders and things. And so it sort of focused on that kind of flow. So, it could be automated trading, it could be sort of individuals trading or, market making, stuff like that. And what we really wanted to do was to, what we determined was that, what we're building here is a general purpose protocol, right? This can take other types of transaction flows and handle them in exactly the same ways they'd handle a limit order or a user's trade, and do the same thing, right? Develop additional value from those transactions and then be able to return that to whoever the user or the smart contract or protocol or whatever it is that's sending those transactions into the system. And so we started to look around, the rest of the industry at various protocols. And I credit, Execute, one of the earliest engineering contributors that we brought on board on the team, with doing a lot of legwork on this, as well as conversations we had pretty early on with Yaron from B Protocol and some other folks who kind of jammed with us on this a little bit and came up with some really interesting concepts that we were able to start integrating. It's essentially to, the fact is that trading is only one kind of a transaction that you need to, settle on chain. But these types of issues with, like as Joey put it, bots coming and ripping your face off, that's something that happens to all kinds of transactions. So if you need to rebalance a portfolio, or you need to try to rebalance a market, or you're in AMM and you're trying to quote the right price, there's if you're trying to make sure that your derivative contracts have the proper price from a price oracle, from other things, there's all kinds of ways in which individual protocols can lose value as a result of these same on-chain processes that affect traders. And most of the headlines go to traders, right? Traders X, was trying to do something and got their face ripped off. Let's examine and dissect how exactly that happened. That's kind of what you see if you look around a lot of the MEV stuff. But there is this sort of structural transaction flows as well that suffer from the same problem. And what we looked at was, how do we build a system and build this system so that we can accommodate those transaction flows as well. And again, this wasn't me alone or any individual person. This was a series of conversations we had with a lot of builders in the space to kind of go down the checklist of, talk to me about how your protocol issues transactions and the kind of things that you look for and do today, and how something like this might benefit you. And every conversation we had was just this sort of revelation that we had together about, so we can take our transactions, we can pass them through this protocol and eliminate those negative externalities. So there's no sandwiching and front running and any of that. Eliminate a lot of the settlement cost, some of the gas and fees and things, and also develop additional value and internalize that value with the protocol. So basically develop new revenue streams for these protocols that they can then decide what to do with. They could keep it for a treasury, or they could pass it on to actors in their protocol, like liquidity providers, or whatever it is. It depends on the protocol. But in all cases, it was really making these protocols more efficient than they were before. And it's just great. So yeah, we've worked with a number of amazing partners so far, B Protocol and GMX and Gamma Strategies, M Stable, Tally, Tally Ho, I guess I should say, is their new name. So lots of wonderful projects who have to do something specific to them. But what we all kind of have in common is the fact that, our protocols or our smart contracts or our infrastructure and our users, they need to issue transactions, and these transactions can, be sort of gamed. And by doing, by using this protocol to kind of pass your transactions through, it really prevents that from happening, and then it develops that additional value, but on your behalf, right? Rather than sort of in an adversarial way. And it's just this really magical box that they can sort of pass these things through. So it's been great. So, if any protocols out there that are, that have sort of MEV in the back of their minds, or have to do anything, especially with large quantities of assets, but even if not, and they think today about MEV and using flash bots or using other kinds of things to try to mitigate stuff. This is a place where there's really an interesting conversation here. And each time we have one of these conversations, we learn something, and we kind of make our systems better and more able to accommodate these things. And it's really great to see, because it really demonstrates how this is a general purpose infrastructure, right? It's a general purpose infrastructure for transaction settlement. And a lot of the things we're building in the future are, the near future, I should say, are really designed to accommodate those types of flows in a much easier way, and to provide a really simple integration experience for most of these protocols. So it's basically that you plug into this thing, and you start developing value immediately. And I think that would be a wonderful experience for a lot of protocols around the space. It's also really fun for the developers and contributors on the team to kind of go around and hear from a lot of other protocols and projects. There's so much interesting stuff being built, of course, and this is a sort of a great way to kind of expand the catchment for our protocol, develop more value for the DAO here, and more transaction flow for the keepers and everybody else, because the system's really set up so that the more that goes into it, the more volume and the more different kinds of transactions and people interacting through it, the better it gets, right? Like more value, better prices, everything becomes more efficient. It's one of those great systems where, the more you put into it, the more complexity you put into it, the more value comes out and the better it gets. It's one of those things, and it's really really wonderful. So yeah, if you're a protocol and you are thinking about this stuff, you should definitely be in touch with us. And if you're not, we'll probably be in touch with you sooner than later. So yeah, and this has been a wonderful process over the last few months of signing up a lot of these partnerships and starting to work together. So much really interesting stuff that we've been doing.
I wholeheartedly agree. And, there's, even a further wrinkle in that, which is, something that, Matt, our treasury specialist, has been helping champion as well, which is, looking at the assets that we have that can be, activated, and using that to help maybe not just say bootstrap, something that one of our partner protocols is looking to accomplish, but also using that to drive conversations. And what we have found is that these protocols all face a lot of the same issues, and just starting those conversations off and getting our engineers in touch with each other, those have just led to really kind of bespoke solutions that help not just make their protocols more efficient, but really it can reward their users. That protocol can grow its DAO treasury. The benefits for working and coordinating with us, really are what I would consider exceptional. So I'm I'm so looking forward to continuing to just, do our outreach and speak with as many of these protocols that have, awesome on-chain activity and helping share the vision of the value of working with us.
Yeah, I have to say the most fun part in every one of these calls is when they ask, okay, so we're splitting this MEV, so how are we splitting it, right? And it's like, oh, well, you get 80%. And they're like, what? They do like a double take. And they're like, 80? You're going to give me 80?
That's not normal at all. Usually it's like 20% at best or something.
It's wonderful. We love it. And it's not, we're not keeping 20 either. Part of it's getting burned, part of it's going to the DAO. It's just like, it's this wonderful part of the conversation. And they ask, well, what what's in it for you? And it's like, it's structural, right? It's, we think about it like a public good. Like everybody in this infrastructure has to be maintained, right? They all have to be incentive aligned. So of course there's value distribution to everybody, but 80% is the value distribution to the people that want to use it. That's makes sense. And yeah,
and just to reiterate,
great conversation.
One thing, in case it wasn't obvious, all of these potential partner opportunities, integrations, whether it's Bancor, GMX, or something else, some other DAO, all of this value flow goes through the Rook token economics, right? It's all of that contributes. And today, when you look at our dashboard today, you're seeing people who are using our app to trade, right? But in the future, you will see on our dashboard, there may be, keepers bidding on someone who's using our app to trade, USDC for wrapped Bitcoin. But then maybe the next one is maybe there was some, price oracle update and a keeper used that to extract arbitrage. And then maybe it was some B protocol liquidation. And then maybe it was some wallet that's connected through us. There was some relay of transaction where you have value was extracted from a transaction that had nothing to do with our ecosystem, but was brought into our ecosystem, using another method. And so our dashboard is going to grow, and you'll be able to visualize all of these things, and all of this stuff goes through the same ecosystem, and the value gets shared through that X-Rook staking pool, that you guys can stake in today. I mean, this thing has so much potential. There's so many verticals. There's so many ways that it can succeed, just well beyond, one single, trading app.
All right. I think we're at an awesome point where we have probably shared a large amount of information, and folks probably have some questions. So why don't we open it up to some community Q&A here? If you've got a question, go on ahead and we can play some Deets Bingo and raise your hand, and I'll call you up to the stage. And let's see what you guys have thought about that we haven't covered yet in the call today. So yeah, is there any community members that would like some clarification on something, that have some ideas, or oh wait, I think I have something in the voice chat too. Yeah, so it looks like we have something from Al Cappuccino here talking about target volume and what things could look like as we grow the protocol. So, in terms of projections or overall volume, I would love to hear kind of any thoughts around that.
Yeah, with volume, I've always said it's hard to say because there's so many factors, right? So we don't have targets. The best target is sort of high and to the right. So we've got volume coming in. One of the reasons it's hard to kind of project is because, on-chain volume itself is quite variable, and market conditions change a lot of factors about that. But the reason part of it's dependent is, we've got users using our trading app, right? We've got market makers connected directly through the API. We've got all these integrations that are spinning up. They're going to start sending order flow directly through. And so the volume, like the total aggregate volume, we could probably find an approximation of what we'd want that to be. It'd probably take, a bunch of person hours to do that. It would probably be better spent, working on other things. And so it's kind of a greedy process in an algorithmic sense where we're kind of just like, it should be maximal. It should be as much as possible. So I don't personally have a particular target in mind. We don't really work from targets and say, we want to get to this much. How do we get there? I look at it as who is out there with these transactions. I look at it as catchment, as coverage, right? Where are there transaction flows that are not coming through the Rook protocol, and how can we bring them in through the Rook protocol? That's how I look at it. So rather than volume, because the volume will take care of itself, right? If B protocol and Bancor and all these other folks are passing transaction flow through this, then our volume is their volume and their volume is our volume. So it's sort of a transitive question. So I don't have any hard targets. It's more a coverage question, is how we kind of look at it, right? So where are we not? What transaction flows are we not capturing yet that we could, right? Obviously, growth is a big part of everything we do at this stage, particularly. But to put a number on it isn't something we've actually done. It's hard to know, and the whole industry is really growing as well. I mean, who knows if there's another bull market and that number goes way up? Do we hit our target? Maybe not. Maybe it's just because there's a whole lot of people that showed up and started trading, right? And that we're not where we think we are in a business sense. We want to be, more, or some kind of a fraction. So another way to look at it is maybe to look at a fraction of the total MEV that's on chain, or use like Flashbots Explorer or something like that, and say, well, what fraction of the transaction flows do you want to target? Well, the answer is 100. All right. But where will we be at the end of the year? It depends. It depends on a lot of these integrations, how they go, stuff like that. So there's a lot of lenses we look at this through. It's just that the volume, the aggregate volume, isn't one of those numbers. We do display the stat because it's obviously important information, but it's sort of hard to plan on the basis of that number.
So that, those integrations bring up a great next question, where I'm seeing here, outside of Bancor, who's live with our limit orders today, what's the next integration we think we're going to see go live through the Rook protocol?
Well, we've got quite a few that are like right on the edge of starting to pass volume through. I know the B protocol, Liquidity USD backstop, as well as the GMX exchange integration are very, very close to live. I mean, there's conversations literally happening as I'm speaking between our development teams on kind of flicking switches on these things. So I would say those, but I mean, others are very close as well. So the partners that we've talked about so far are probably going to be the first ones to really be going live, and then of course we have quite a deep pipeline of other folks sort of in other stages of discussion and integration and stuff like that.
Great. So another question I got was around Rook staking and how revenue is going to be shared with our ex-Rook holders. So the question was, let me pull this up. I just had this in front of me. I apologize. The question was, how frequently does that pool receive the interest that's coming along with this revenue share? And I can kind of hop into this, and we'll be sharing a more comprehensive document about staking instructions and walkthroughs on staking for folks that might need a little bit more a little bit clearer way for handling staking as well. But staking for us is the interest comes from two ways. The first part of it is something that Jay-Z talked about, which is direct bids that come through the coordinator that are shared with users, with stakers, with the treasury, and Rook that is burned. So of every bid that comes through on every transaction, 10% of that bid will be going to stakers. And that is pooled up over about 25,000 blocks. And then once we hit past that, that will be sent from the coordinator to the staking channel, the staking contract, which will then evenly disperse that based off of your percentage holding of Rook compared to the rest of the staking pool. The other side of how that accumulates is tunable through governance and using, our treasury and types of revenue that's generated through it. So, but you'll see right now, if you're currently an ex-Rook holder and you've staked your Rook, you'll see that, the APY, I think, is something in the 70s. I think we're probably just shy of about 100,000 Rook that's been staked to the protocol. That is based off of something that has been discussed in this community at length, and something that we've been managing, which is the CVX position, and taking the revenue from the biweekly gauge voting and flipping that to Rook. So what we'll be doing is taking some of that Rook that's been bought back with that biweekly revenue, and we'll be distributing that evenly over a period of time for stakers as well. And that's done on a manual basis that we will most likely be doing every day. So you'll see, at least until that part of the process is automated. So staking right now, we'll have kind of two inflows: the regular kind of tokenomics that come with just normal everyday operations of the Rook protocol, and then what governance has chosen to do with some portion of accepted treasury revenue. And so we'll see that we'll have a period of boosted staking APR through this CVX revenue position being shared with all of our stakers, and that program is going to run for 8 weeks. And so folks that are in the staking pool now, and when that gets started, they'll see that benefit, and we will be able to use governance to decide kind of if that program is something we are seeing a benefit from, if that's need to be tunable in one direction or the other, or if we want to change that in some other way. So in terms of staking, I'm really excited to kind of see the conversations that come from the community around kind of its value and what people really want to see from it. But I think that this is just the beginning of the utility of specifically that X-Rook token, where you're not only just kind of earning a little bit of interest here, you're really kind of taking part in ownership of the protocol, where this is a factor of feeling like that you get to benefit from the success of our integrations, the success of more users using the protocol, or market makers or more keepers coming and joining. So for me, that's something very exciting. But we also have opportunities that can be built ahead in the future, and whether that's collateralization or enhanced governance features for stakers, really the possibilities around that, are as much as that we can kind of dream and pull into reality. So I'm really excited to see kind of where Rook goes from here as well. All right. That was the majority of the questions I had seen. Does anyone here in the audience have other questions for us that they want to come up on stage and ask? Let's see here. Not seeing anybody with any questions. Joey, Hazard, is there anything that we failed to cover today? Oh, wait, Tripe, I got you. Come on up here.
Hey everyone, congratulations guys on the rebrand and Rook protocol launch. Looks great. I was just curious if you could outline, I joined a little late here, so maybe it was already covered, but if you could just outline the protocol's continuance or new hiring strategy going forward? What does the squad look like today, and what can we expect for the next maybe 6 months?
So we're talking about the contributors, like the team?
Yep. And any potential new onboarding, yeah.
Yeah. The team is has been growing a lot, as everybody's sort of been able to see. And
Right.
actually, we have a lot of new contributors that not a lot, but we've got a good number, a good handful of really awesome new contributors who we haven't even been able to talk about yet, because they kind of joined just before, kind of during this launch process, right? So we kind of weren't able to kind of mix up our comms to kind of introduce them. But like Joey said earlier, there's so many aspects to what we're doing where, the way that I look at it is, if the contributors on something are going to help to bring new value and develop new value for the protocol, right? They're basically paying for themselves. And usually they're paying for themselves and then some. So for example, being able to deliver what the product team delivered with the totally rebuilt trading application, like that is not something that we could have done 6 months ago. No way, not even 3 months ago, maybe, because we really didn't have the kind of staffing that you would really need to pull something like that off on any kind of reasonable timeline. And stuff like that has been just this huge sea change in the way that we're able to operate. So yeah, I mean, we're going to be continuing to grow, because we know we currently have gaps in our contributorship that we want to fill, and also we know where we kind of want to pour some more energy and some more hands and eyeballs on certain verticals that we're really interested in developing further. That said, all of this comes back to making sure that every person that we onboard and every role that we have is really aligned with the mission of the DAO and the protocol, and it's sort of, I guess if you want to call them business objectives, or the objectives, like what are we here to do? What does this get us? Why are we doing this? And I think you saw a lot of pruning over the last quarter, right, of things that weren't really aligned with those objectives. So some of the stuff we did with sunsetting the hiding vaults and sunsetting the liquidity pools, or starting to sunset them, we're really about this process of taking a look and saying, where do we need to put the power, and what can we kind of cut loose? And so that process is going to be ongoing. So we have a wonderful jobs board that's been set up by Tommy, who's been doing an amazing job coordinating sort of this workplace, this very strange, very DAO kind of workplace, all remote, we're all online, we're all kind of over the world in all these different time zones. And it's this huge challenging problem of how do you organize a really hyper-productive workforce in this kind of situation. It's just kind of a totally new way of working for most of us. And Tommy's been instrumental in making sure that we're getting coordinated and coming together and making sure that we're doing things. And I think what we're going to see in the next quarter is going to be a lot about kind of stitching that back into the DAO at large, and making sure that we've got communication passing back and forth, and all the great things that we want to have to kind of make this whole holistic organism start hitting on all cylinders. And so more growth to come. Also more kind of definition around teams, particular teams, and how those teams have missions that roll up into the sort of overall DAO mission. But yeah, we're not done. Like Joey said, we're kind of just hitting our stride in this growth phase. So I would say we're still probably accelerating, or we're at least going to be at constant velocity for a little while as we continue to grow. Yeah.
Okay, great.
So
sounds like
I gotta plug
very
it. I gotta plug it and say, if you want to join as a contributor, if you're interested in the stuff we're doing and you're listening to this, you should definitely come to the Discord. Reach out to anybody that you can find on Twitter, on the Discord. Just DM us or just introduce yourself. We're looking for all kinds of positions. And check out I think we've changed the link for our careers page, but you'll be seeing it if you check out any of our recent blog posts. You can go and and check out open positions and stuff. But if you don't see a position there that you're kind of interested in or something that matches your skill set, you should still probably reach out and contact us, right? Because you never know. We don't know everything that we need, right, and everything that's out there. So happy to talk to anybody who wants to contribute.
Sounds good. Sounds like a healthy outlook and process. Thanks for speaking to that, Hazard.
Awesome. Great question.
So I'd like
So
to bring up one thing real quick, and this wasn't a question, but I think I had touched on it earlier, and some people have been asking about this or have asked about this in the past in previous calls that we've done. So one of the things that we're working on right now is upgrading our swap protocol. So today we're using the 0xv4 RFQ protocol, and I've actually designed a new protocol that is going to be significantly better and is going to be more friendly to the user and the keeper. It's going to be significantly more gas efficient, which means users will trade at better prices and they'll get more MEV rewards. It's going to have more flexibility for intelligent order routing and batching. It'll enable more order types. So there have been a lot of requests for order types, over the many months that you guys have been around the Discord. So definitely kind of revisit that discussion. There've been a lot of people just suggesting that they want this type or that type. Now's the time to kind of voice that again. And the nice thing about the new protocol is keepers won't need any assets to trade anymore. They'll only need to pay for gas, whereas right now they do need assets to trade. So that'll be a huge benefit to keepers. Keepers will really like this upgrade. So I kind of look at this upgrade as the rocket fuel that basically just launches this thing into outer space and then makes us immediately compete as a top DEX aggregating protocol when it comes to batching and routing and supporting users and just having users really kind of lead the charge. Because today I'd say if we have one limitation, it's that there's a few gas inefficiencies that are there with the current protocol that we're using. But the good news is this has actually already been MVP'd, and it looks really good. It's just now a matter of kind of pushing it across the finish line and making those final development swings. So we don't have a timeline on it yet, but it should be out this summer.
that's awesome. So, Joey, I think that's really exciting talking about kind of where we're building next. Maybe you or Hazard can talk a little bit about, now that, we're post-launch here, how do you see, development breaking off in terms of, teams working on specific things, kind of what's, we've been pretty heads down on getting to this point today. What will development look like looking ahead?
So one thing that I kind of already alluded to would be just adding on more integrations and more partners and just kind of strapping them to the coordinator. So today you have our trade app. In the future, say we'll have the B protocol liquidation mechanism, or maybe we'll have some price oracle update mechanisms. And so you'll just basically see all sorts of additional information start appearing on our dashboard and start going through our economic flywheel. And it'll just multiply, the volume and just exponentially increase that. It's really exciting to think about. And we're also working on something else, which we won't get into too many details right now, but I mean, there's a lot of exciting things really. So just look for more activity, look for more volume. And then too, at some point, we would like to kind of open up the gates and let in significantly more keepers. We're kind of, right now we're kind of in the phase where we're kind of only looking for the exact fit. But once we kind of turn a corner, say with the swap protocol, for example, we get that out there, then we can really open the gates and kind of onboard significantly more, participants into the ecosystem. That's really like maybe from the technology perspective and the dashboard perspective, really just look for more activity and look for more things to be added to the dashboard, in the future.
Yeah, from my perspective, one of the things that I know having been on both sides of the fence, is that it's not always obvious when you release a piece of technology. Like you see what's presented, but you don't always see kind of how it's built. You kind of see what's built, but not how it's built. And I think a really important thing about the way that we've built the coordinator and the Rook trade app and really a lot of the systems that we have is that they're all very tunable, and they're kind of built from the ground up to evolve. And so one of the things that we've been transitioning to gradually, as a team, is a shorter sort of delivery cycle, if you want to think about it like that, and more of a continuous improvement type of workflow. And so everything that kind of has been launched here is sort of like, that's sort of step one. That's like the initial state, right? And then we're just going to continually evolve and improve and tune and add aspects of these kind of, this foundation, these fundamentals. Every day, every week, there's going to be little changes, and gradually there'll be big changes and big improvements, and the whole system is just going to get better and better and better all the time. And that really leverages a lot of the workflows that we've built, as well as like how we work as a team and how you organize a team like this. Like these big, huge marquee releases, like they're fun, kind of, but they're also stressful, right? They're stressful for us as much as they're stressful for everybody out there who's been waiting with, bated breath. They create these sort of these big key moments, and you're always going to have some of those. But at the same time, especially with the team that we have today, it's so much more powerful to just have this sort of a steam engine, or this kind of rising tide of innovation and new features, so that everything is just getting better and better and better. And if you go away for a month and you come back, it's going to look, so much better than you remember it, right? And it'll just be this constant, sort of conveyor belt of improvements. And there'll be, we want to do this because it'll match the same growth we want to see in, the protocol and its volumes, right? And we can do the same with all of our products and stuff. So a lot of the things Joey's talking about are these amazing enhancements that are just going to make this whole system better and better. So now that we have this sort of this flywheel, this kind of beating heart, this engine at the center of everything, right? It becomes all about these systems around it, these systems of partners, these systems of integrations, the human systems for us, the contributors building it, and for the DAO, monitoring it and giving feedback and participating in governance. All of these things kind of interact together into this organism, right? And so rather than have these really prolonged periods where we're off, we're working somewhere, black ops kind of stuff, we want to have this sort of a tighter loop, a tighter iteration, so that we can kind of keep up communication, keep up our public communication as well as communication with the DAO, make more agile decisions. And that's something that we can do today with the team that we have now that was just not possible, right? Like you can't run a process like that when you only have, 5 to 10 people. It's really hard to do that. Whereas today with the staffing that we have and all the processes we've started to stand up, it's much more tractable, and it's going to lead to just constantly better products. Then the protocol is going to get better, the trade app, all of these things are just going to get better and better. It's going to be really exciting to see how all of this energy starts getting channeled. So that's what I'm really looking forward to.
All right. Well, this has been really, really cool, and just I can't wait to kind of get us back to work and keep going and iterating further and getting more integrations and sharing more information about things. I think one of the most exciting things for me is the analytics that are going to come from every transaction that comes through the Rook protocol, and what we'll be able to do in terms of looking and analyzing at different types of trades and how market makers are performing and what goes into keepers and how many average hops they're doing for a transaction, or how much bid is going to be averaged out over a short amount of time. There's just an infinite amount of things that we can do with the data that's coming through here. Really excited to see how can we not just improve what our partners are doing, not just how we can improve, how users are interacting with our protocol, but having that information available to share and just showcase, how exciting these opportunities are. I'm just so excited for it. All right. Well, do we have one last question here? If not, then we can go on ahead and close out today. But I'll give the community one last chance to kind of ask anything that's on their mind. See some Win Lambo. I heard that you were buying it for me there, Spaghetto. So we'll get there soon. Well, hey everybody, this has been just another awesome conversation. Joey, Hazard, really appreciate you guys coming in and digging into everything. For everybody else out there, we'll be continuing to communicate, updates and information about, specific parts of what's been launched. We've got really cool marketing initiatives coming up as well. So, for us, not just stay tuned, but hope to see you interacting, with every part of the new web application, and, staking your Rook, digging in through the analytics, sharing your feedback with us, asking questions here. We love seeing the interactions with it. And so please continue. And we're looking forward to sharing more with you and really kind of taking, every aspect of this to the next level. So, again, just a big thank you to, Joey, Hazard, and our whole, team that has gotten us to where we are today, and all the community members that have been here and supporting us. Just a really big day of thank yous for everybody. But I think that's going to go on ahead and close us out for today. And so, we look forward to seeing everybody around the Discord. Hopefully you guys can hop on, share our stuff on socials, continue to share feedback with us here. And we'll be hosting Town Hall again next week. So sorry that we took, a week off of Town Hall here, but we'll be working back through that, in our regular cadence again, in terms of Treasury Tuesdays, governance workshop on Wednesdays, town halls on Fridays. And so just looking, to continue that awesome community involvement that we've been seeing lately, led by Senth, by Matt, and, really hope to continue to see, the number of contributors at those increase. But again, huge shout out and thank you to everybody here today. And we'll go on ahead and close this down for the afternoon. And hope everybody has a great weekend, and can't wait to see what's coming next. All right, everyone. Thank you so much.